right, hey guys, welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. It's the Publishin' Pete channel. And we've got some wild weather tonight, so hopefully it cooperates with us and we can manage to maintain power the whole night and no emergency shutdowns or anything like that. Crazy winds up here and lots of rain tonight. But what's up, Darth Josh? Hope you're doing good. We got Jaded One in the house as well, and the man who's gonna be with me in a second is also in the chat. What's up? GILLY Writes Comics. That's GILLY DELTREZ, and without further ado, let's bring him on. What's up?
Pete, thank you so much for having me on your channel. It means everything, and just glad to be here, man. Straight up.
Yeah, no problem at all. This is a show that's, what, 3 weeks in the making or something like that?
It's been building up. It's been building up, and we made it happen. That's all that matters, right? We got it done. We locked it in.
Oh, man. There's all kinds of confusion with the date, and then it was I was having problems with allergies and headaches, and then the holiday, and then now we're here, though, so hell yeah.
Hell yes.
Billy Jacobs, what's up, Billy? Hope you're doing good. We got Randy in the house too. Hey, GJ, how's it going? And we got Hyrule. What's up, Hyrule Guy 231?
Hyrule, nice.
All right, so Gilly's on here today. We're gonna be talking about comics and whatnot, all things comic, all things indie creative. I'd like to talk to you about your experiences as an indie comic creator. I know that's a very vast and open question. So instead of something as big as, well, how'd you get started or why do you create comics? What was the first comic you ever made?
First crowdfunded comic I made is a comic that still I hold deep in my heart. It's called Under the Flesh. It's a doomsday horror comic that was crowdfunded on Kickstarter way back in 2014. I didn't know a lick about how to create comics. I didn't know what I was doing. I was green as they come, but what I did have was a desire to tell stories. And I was able to get that one funded, and it's a big learning experience, let's just say, with crowdfunding in general with that.
I'm pretty sure I backed that one, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did.
Holy cow. Man, small world. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Guys, let that just show you.
I'm pretty sure I did, because
Wow.
didn't you have... It was either... I know I got a print, and it was kind of like a throwback style to Uncanny X-Men.
Wow. Yes. So, yes.
And I think you sent the print with the issue.
I did have it. That was one thing we did where, again, we didn't know crap about stretch goals, but I think one thing we did was where we did a kind of like a print variant in that style with the X-Men. The artist that I worked on with at the time, one of my favorite artists ever, he doesn't get enough praise. His name is J.L. Giles, and that was kind of our thing. Wanted to do a throwback. Oh my gosh, man! I wish I could find that print, man. I could. They're gone. Like literally, I didn't know about anything. Like I'm telling you, I might have 2 copies of Under the Flesh. That like seriously, like of 1 and 2, and like that's it. Like, and it's just. I'm telling you, man, it's a learning. Oh my God, major.
It reminds me of when I was starting out with crowdfunded comics and everything too. You don't know what the hell to do, especially the very early days of it. Everything just felt like, am I just supposed to beg?
It was literally like that. You're trying to, I don't want to say
you don't really
begging,
know. Yeah, you don't like. No one really knew. There was so many people that were just like for $1 a day, you could support an up and coming comic creator. It was very strange. Some people still run their campaigns like that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No,
don't do what we did back in the day. But it was uncharted territory.
Man, I'm gonna tell you one thing right now. If I could take all the knowledge I have right this second and go back and do it all over again, it's like you said, it was open water and it wasn't as crowded, the space. Thanks, JG. He's great. It's such a now. I feel like you're competing with mainstream publishing in crowdfunding. It's crazy because you got stuff like Boom Studios. John Wick, Keanu Reeves, right? He had his comic Berserker, and I think they put that on Kickstarter and made like $1 million in a day. It's just like, that's our competition. But back then, when we didn't know what the heck we were doing, there wasn't it wasn't as crowded as it was, and we could have done things way better. I feel now it's like you're fighting for that bit of airspace.
Oh yeah.
Holy cow.
It's good and it's bad. So if you're someone who you're not ready to rise to the occasion, it's going to be kind of a rough go. But for, I think, a lot of us, especially people who have been doing comics for quite a while, it just kind of makes you want to be better. It makes you inspired to be better, and you have to be better, whether it's through the quality of your stories, your art, the perks you're offering, the price level. You got to be competitive. And if anything, like, that's a great system. I love seeing it like that. But it is true, though, that the more you level the playing field, the more competition there is, and you got to really find a way to cut through the noise.
Mm-hmm. And that's still a challenge for a lot of new creators now. Even creators that are seasoned are still having a challenge as far as just putting stuff out there, because there's a lot of stuff out there. And here's the thing, crowdfunding is one part of it, but another part is fulfillment. So a lot of people that don't know go in like, hey, I
you view those two things separately? I always view them as one and the same.
Well, they are one and the same, but I see them as different levels, right? Like, you level up, like, okay, you crowdfunded, great. Now it's a matter of, okay, now I have the finances. Now I got to make sure I get the book out. I got to pay the art teams. I got to manage, the printing. I got to oversee schedules. It's crazy because you're managing, you got artists that are working on other projects. And like, hey, how the page is looking here? How's this looking here? And then it's like, okay, I need this by this time because I got to send it to the printer. I had one campaign Lair that we tried a new printer called Kraken Print at the time. And
oh yeah, I remember Kraken.
You do
pain in my Kraken.
Exactly. Exactly. They were going bankrupt in the middle of a print job that I had done, and they never told me anything about my printing after following up, trying to call this and that. And you're putting, I can't remember at the time. It was like a $3,000 order or $2,000. I don't know. It was a lot of money that I put for this print job, and I was not going to get that money back. I had to dispute it with my bank, and then I had to find another printer on top of that. So
yeah, they almost made us. I had to stay on top of them. They almost made us blow a diamond deadline.
Oh my God.
Which would have cost us upwards of like $3,000 to $4,000 on 3 different graphic novels. Oh, I was like, we sent these to you in November. It's April now.
That's what I was.
I was
that
like,
was the worst
we're 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away on one of the books from blowing the deadline to get them in. And then we were like, I think 4 or 5 weeks away on the other 2. And it wasn't a pleasant experience at all.
A nightmare for me.
But I don't know if anyone's. I don't want to turn the show into like the let's beat up on Kraken Print. As far as I know, I believe they're dead and gone at this point.
I believe so, because there was one person that was working with Kraken Print who was helping me facilitate everything. Kevin Rodadelli, I think his name is.
Okay.
And he's actually been moving up the playing field, and I think now he's with Whatnot Publishing, if I'm not mistaken. So it's nice to see that he left Kraken Print onto better things. So
yeah, forget the name of the guy we dealt with. I don't know if it was like a J name. I don't know if it was like Jacob or Jeremy or something like that. But that person was involved in many different stupid things.
Oh yeah.
But comics can get silly in not fun ways. So as you were creating Under the Flesh, you said 2013 that was?
2014, yeah.
2014.
Yeah, 2014, like, yeah. Funded that first campaign.
You ended up creating the first GROM. When was that? That was like, what, 2018?
So GROM, we were able to successfully crowdfund. Boom, 2019, we were able to successfully crowdfund our Volume 1 trade paperback, which is like over 100 pages, which in retrospect, in hindsight, I wouldn't do that unless you have a lot of the book done. But since I needed the money to make the book and to finance the hell of an art team that we got on there, it was a really big ask. We funded the campaign, which was amazing. And then we hit, like you said, some of the not so fun things that happen in comics. COVID happened. And then my artist on this project, Sebastian Navas, who's a beast of an artist, he was expecting to welcome his beautiful baby girl into this world, and she passed away at birth.
Oh no! Oh yes. Man!
And that hurt a creative mind to create creative pages, and he was staying strong for his family. But I'm like, man, take whatever time you need.
Wow.
You know what I mean? You can't rush that. That's something, but he pulled through. He championed through it all. So he's an amazing guy. He's a brother for me. And just to go through that, and as a dad, it's crazy. And to honor his daughter that passed, I had named my daughter a variation of her name. He was going to name her Alyssa. I named my daughter Alyssa. He blessed that. And then we do have a nice little dedication in our GROM Volume 1 to his daughter. So she will forever live on in our book. And I'm just going to try to show this real quick because it's a powerful little thing right here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a little dedication.
Let me make you full screen. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't know if you can maybe get it. But, yeah, maybe you could freeze frame that when you guys, but read it. It's very powerful. I'll just read it out real quick. This is what Sebastian had written. Thank you for coming into our life. Just an eternal moment in our arms, here and gone in a flash, like lightning before leaving us. Now you are free. We are a little more broken, and the sky has a bright new star for our little fighter, Alyssa. Oof.
Man,
wow, that hits me hard as a dad. Holy cow. So we memorialized her in our book, and that's GROM has a history, believe it or not. So we're championing along with that,
Man, oh man.
Yeah, that's wow. Crazy.
Jeez. Talk about some of the hurdles you have to overcome, Not
it
just
happens.
comic
Yeah, it happens
related.
to everyone.
That's the thing.
It happens. It happens.
Personal stuff happens, and you're in the middle of doing this stuff, and it's just, it can kick you right in the, and it takes a lot to recover. And some people don't. Some people don't. They call it a day and that's it. They walk away. I'm glad that your artist was able to kind of do that and get back into it. And
we powered through and we fulfilled. It took a while, but we fulfilled. Everyone got their books, and now we're back to continue the story. Yeah.
Well, I know you've got a new one, and we're not going to have this show be some kind of a total promo show.
No.
You'll definitely get to be able to talk about the campaign that you have going on more at the end of the show. But if you guys do want to check it out, they got a new book out, a new GROM book, and that's on Indiegogo right now. The link is in the description of the show, so you guys can feel free to check that out throughout the course of the show if you'd like. Mm-hmm. So as far as overcoming those hurdles and things like that, getting a bit back to the easier stuff, which is just comic book problems as opposed to these big life-shattering type problems.
Right.
What were some of the things that you think you did right, you would repeat, and then some of the things you would not do again that you thought, oh man, we did that and lesson learned, never again?
Yeah, well, I could go back to to where it all began with Under the Flesh. I had a period of time where I was away from comics. And then I got back in. Jada, I would appreciate that. Thank you guys. And The Walking Dead was big for me. I've always been a big zombie fan. Zombie films is just something I gravitated towards. I love the Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Of course, Night of the Living Dead, right? I mean, there's so many. There's also Zombie by Lucio Fulci. So I'm big on just the idea of a zombie story. And The Walking Dead was before it was a TV show. I just like comics. I was getting back into comics, and I picked up The Walking Dead, and I loved it. And I always wanted to tell stories, and I'm like, why not Under the Flesh? Let me create what you think is a zombie story and flip that on its head by going with all those zombie tropes, but showing how I'm going to do it different. And here's where I changed things, because unfortunately we did do the first 3 issues of that campaign. I had it as a 6-issue arc, and my artist, who I said at the time, J.L. Giles, is an amazing guy. If you guys see the artwork on Under the Flesh, even if you Google Under the Flesh Kickstarter, something will come up. The artwork is amazing, and he was getting Marvel work. There you go. He had like something big came in with Marvel, and then he was doing a lot of Marvel work, and he couldn't commit to Under the Flesh. And me being green, you fall for your first love, that he was my artist, man. I was like, I couldn't picture anyone else touching that story and the synergy we had with that book. So I always had it in mind to bring it back. And it's, if I knew what I knew now, do what you got to do. I will take my time and find an artist that could commit, and I would continue and complete that story. But I didn't know that then. I didn't know. So that's still one book that hasn't finished. But every good story has a story behind the story. And that's one book that I do feel will eventually get a conclusion. That's
good.
One, yeah, for sure. That's not something that's just going to be left.
How many issues did you guys manage to get done?
We got 3 issues done. and we 4 issues, 5th issue, 6th issue, everything's all written out. We just never got to, complete it because that was my naivety, and I should have just went for another artist. But I was hoping JL would come back, and guys, guess what? He did come back, but he didn't want to work on Under the Flesh. He's like, I just want to draw something different. I want to draw something with beautiful women, and what we ended up coming up with, if you guys check out The Deep Dark, look up The Deep Dark Kickstarter, The Deep Dark Indiegogo. He wanted to do a Lovecraft story, and okay, that's a challenge for me. And we made an incredible one-shot Lovecraft story, The Deep Dark, and that was me reuniting with JL. But again, we couldn't get everything finalized to do something with Under the Flesh. And even now, he couldn't commit to what we had in mind for the Lovecraftian anthology series. We just got 2 titles out, The Deep Dark and then Blackheart Manor. And then we weren't able to do anything with it because, again, he got other work. He couldn't commit. And there's an identity when you open a book with someone that adds a lot of creativity with the Lovecraftian stories. He did add a lot. And, it's hard to just go into that with a new artist. You have to find the right person. There's a connection there. There's a fingerprint attached.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like if you get a new artist, they have to be on that same wavelength in some kind of way, and believing and invested in the story. And so it's just hindsight for you guys. If you get an artist, try to work out something where you can lock them in to finish a series out, or as long as you can, or just try to get all that, fine-tuned, because when they can't commit, it leaves you hoping for more. But it's like, okay, where do I go? And this is the stuff that happens with the big 2. You have a great artist on a book, the art just changes. In The Walking Dead, it happened. You had Tony Moore, and then it changed. So it happens, and it's just we have to adapt. So I think part of a creator in me is learning how to adapt to those situations that I wish I could change in retrospect. But it's just hail, guys. But yeah. Well, I hear you with that, because if you're not working with someone that you're gonna gel with, especially if it's the artist, oh man, that's gonna be one hell of a time on that book. And then even if you kind of manage to drag your ass across the finish line, the final product is usually not that great. It's very rare when you can have people who just really aren't getting along, but then they manage to put that aside to create the art and have it come out really great. But especially, you're 100% right about that. When you're taking on someone new, or you're working with someone for the first time, you really got to make sure that on at least a few important levels, it's kind of like dating. It's exactly like dating. I was gonna go. You're there. Entering a relationship in a way, and if is this just like a thing, you just do one little page and then you want to kill each other, or can you really do a book? Can you do even a series? Could you do a story arc? Whatever it may be, you really got to click on those levels, and if you don't, forget it. And with JL, we had a great relationship. And if you guys see Under the Flesh, if you see The Deep Dark or Blackheart Manor, the quality of work is second to none. And, we all have a little bit of a pride, I will say, for any kind of work a creator puts out and an artist will put out as well. And we would fund our campaigns, but we wouldn't overfund in a way that, I guess, I get at the same time, an artist, has to put food on the table, has to make ends meet. So, if you're not bringing in the type of, audience or numbers that you kind of hope, that could kind of derail, of course, connection. So because if you need to lock somebody down, but how can you do that if the funds aren't there? They have to get other work. I can't compete with Marvel, man. I wish I could. My bank account can't compete with Marvel. I can't. Well, maybe the bank account can't compete, but the book certainly can. Way to go, bro. Thank you. The books can compete. Thank you, Peter. That they can. But I can't compete as far as financially, so I depend on crowdfunding to make ends meet for the artist. But sometimes they don't get, they're not seeing the buzz back. And it's like, hey, I got this coming. I'm like, I get it. It's just part of the game, guys. Yep. It's just part of the game.
Yeah, they got to make a living, and if it's not through art, a lot of people have day jobs, maybe 2 other jobs. Even the first 6 or 7 years of Alterna, I was working 2 to 3 other jobs while I was doing Alterna.
Wow.
So when people are saying, I don't really feel like I'm a pro yet, I don't really feel like I'm a comic creator yet, I'm still having a day job, and no, you get that comic out. If you're making the comic, you're a comic creator. If you're actually getting the comic out and selling it and it's in the hands of people and they're reading it, you're a pro.
Thank you.
It's not one of these things. There's such a weird, I don't know, there's such a weird mentality that I think is such an old school mentality at this point in time, where there has to be a various level of gatekeepers and people who have validated you. And of course, that's going to happen along the way. Selling 1 copy, it's fantastic, it's great, is very different than selling 1,000 or selling 10,000 or 1,000,000. You know what I mean? So you're still going to hit these different notes along the way, but it doesn't invalidate you unless you hit the penultimate level of success, which is what are you talking about there? 0.001% of people who've ever achieved. So I hate when I see creators beat themselves up about that. Take your time. There's a long journey here. Don't just concentrate on every single thing. You have to be the best. You have to sell a ton of them. You have to be amazing right off the bat. Everyone off the bat sucked. So take your time. Don't beat yourself up. The key, though, is, of course, to learn from those mistakes. And that's why I love talking to you about this. And you're seeing some of the successes you had. And then you're looking back at some of the mistakes you made. And the thing is, you have to make those mistakes. Because if you don't, you never learn.
Yeah, not everyone is welcome to failure. It's something they don't want to welcome with open arms. And it's very scary because you fail, right? But I learned in failure that you grow, you mature, and you rethink things. With GROM, we were doing our first campaign. I'm asking for $25,000 from where? You speak about validation. I wasn't an industry pro. I try to get published with.
Me neither. Look at that.
But that's what I'm saying. And you bring it up. There's a stigma, right, with this, what makes a pro, and you laid it out so perfect. You make your comic, you fulfill it. That's being professional. You're being a pro.
Yep.
And the fight for an audience or for validation or for that airspace just to highlight or promote your book, it falls under a banner of gatekeeping. There's gatekeeping in so many ways. And again, me being naive when I was asking for $25,000 for GROM for this 100-page book, very naive. There was a very shaky spot where it literally looked like I was going to fund it. I'm thinking, you know what? I don't have to release it as 100 pages. I'll release it as a 22-page book, and I'll do it in black and white. And then I'm like, wow, I'm breathing. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm adapting.
Yeah.
It funded, but I was ready
important.
for if it didn't fund, because failure will do that. You got to be resilient. You got to be strong. It's a war. I've been crowdfunding comics 8 years. I've been trying to get published. It's been an uphill battle. I've been trying to get spotlights where I can. I know my work is great. It's an uphill battle. You just got to stay positive, and you just got to stay fighting and shooting from behind the trenches. You just got to come out and shoot and just, inch up, take cover, inch up, and just keep, and hopefully you could get to that penultimate level of success, right? Or some type of, at least for me, I want to carve out a nice little audience that can support my work and that can really get something from my work. As much as I want to tell stories, I want to tell stories that have substance. I want to tell stories that mean something.
It's important.
We all watch movies, right? How many times do you watch a movie and like, man, I just wasted 2 hours of my life. I wasted an hour and a half.
What was the point of this? Yeah.
I don't want to give that to people with my book. I want when they read it, they get something that they feel like a connection to. And it's like, I could tell this guy when he's writing his book, he's really trying to give me something with weight. He's not just trying to push something just to push it. Like, hey, this is a hot idea. I'll just think of, I don't know, John Wick meets The Exorcist, and he'll mash it up into a comic, start a campaign, and then write it as he goes. No, I want to put out stuff that has meaning, that will have a good, positive message, and that will be fun at the same time, right? Because even the comic book landscape has changed cataclysmically from what I remember it. And it's crazy how politicized things have gone. And I know you could talk on that, Pete, with what your hurdles you've gone through and trying to get Alterna out to the masses. So it's a war going on, and all we want to do is just make cool comics for you, because there's cool comics that I've read that stuck with me, and I want to give that feeling. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, I want to just carry the torch, and of the giants that came before me, and hopefully there's something that, and Jaded One puts it greatly, stories that resonate with the readers. That's all I hope to create.
Jaded One, yes sir.
And that's what I love seeing, when there's stories that I pick up, and especially if it's something new from an indie creator too, if it resonates with me, I think like, wow, that's great. Because nowadays there's not a lot that I think storytellers are striving to have resonate with people other than something of the superficial,
Extremely
so
superficial.
it's not about resonating on a deeper level, on an experiential level, drawing maybe inspiration or aspiration. It's about making the reader feel like they see themselves in the character, but not by the personality or by the struggle or what they're going through or how they're overcoming, adversity.
The human quality, right?
Yeah.
By the superficial
quality. The thing that literally is the thread
quality
that ties all of us, no matter who we are, no matter when we are. Instead, it's about what do you look like, who you want to sleep with. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. That's what they're trying to look to identify with. And like I said, we're all people. And I've seen stories that will have a LGBTQ friendly character, right? And I like that character the best, and it's because they didn't focus on that side of the table. They didn't focus on what would go on in their private life, even though it was something that was a part of them. They focused on just their human person. And I think we're all, as human beings, and as we look into entertainment, there are times where, even though we want to see a little bit of us, there's times we want to escape, and we want to be immersed into something that takes us outside of the noise, right? And I look at Star Wars as a franchise that I just love that franchise, and just me personally, just my experience and with some of the newer stuff that Disney's been doing, it hasn't been hitting me in that way, in that impactful way. If you think about, in a nutshell, what Star Wars is, if you just strip it down, light side, dark side, right? Jedi, Sith, you have the Empire, oppression, and all that stuff, and then just a rebellion for freedom. These are baselines that's like you can do so much with, and I'm not feeling what Disney's doing. So I take that and I put it into my comics, and I'm like, I'm gonna focus on a story that will just bring people together with a good message. And that's it. And it's just sad that, the landscape has been so toxic. If you like this, I can't be your friend. If you like that. And it's just like, man, I love the days when I can watch a movie and I'll hang out with my friends, right? And we'll talk about, what'd you like? Oh, I like that, but I didn't like that. Oh, why didn't you like that? And we're having a great conversation on what we didn't like about something. And it was great. We weren't fighting. But here with these keyboard warriors, it's so easy to say, oh, you're this and you're that. And it's just like this narrative that you can't critique something fairly, because if you do, or not if you don't, you can't, because you're this, because you're that label that disqualifies you. Whatever happened to the days where Siskel and Ebert would go at it? I give this a thumb, I give this, and they're just going at it. I don't like this, and they're having a discussion on their disagreements, and it was healthy. Film critique, it's healthy. And we're at this level where you can't even critique something. You got to toe the line of what you say so you don't offend something. And it's crazy because it trickles all down into even the publishing landscape, right? The hurdles that you face, the hurdles that I've faced. New York Comic Con. I try to get New York Comic Con. I wanted to share my cool, awesome book, right, with people. Look at this TMNT homage cover. And my application for NYC 2022, it's like you need your Twitter handle. And I'm like, man, they're going to look at my Twitter handle. They're going to see me being me, not being afraid of being myself. Just, I put my heart on my sleeve, and if I don't like something, I'll say what I don't like in respect. And I said, I have a feeling something's going to happen. And I didn't get accepted. So you're telling me with my quality of work over the 8 years that I've been self-publishing outside of the margins of mainstream, you're telling me you can't offer a table to someone like me who wants to grow his business and share his cool comic book with others? Is that what you're telling me? Like, I can't make it. I get the company. I get there's so many people. But if I walked Artist Alley, personally, this past 2022, I'm sure I could have found a space for me amongst whatever was out there. But it's crazy, Pete.
You're not missing much. I tell you, you're not missing much. I love the local small shows as opposed to the big ones. I've done the bigger ones. I haven't done San Diego, but at this no way.
Yeah,
I don't care
I'm with
to.
you. The smaller shows, I think, is
but
where
the
it's
smaller shows are great.
Yeah.
You know, people are out there to discover comics and talk to the creators.
Thank you.
You know, it's not just this big pop culture fest, and they've already paid like $100 before they even enter.
Exactly.
You know, and then they're like, Artist Alley, I don't know what that is. You know, is that where the artists are putting their trash? You know, it's so it's just, yeah, you're not missing much. When we did New York Comic Con, let's see, I think we did it twice. I think 2008 and 2009, and we barely broke even. You know, which means we lost money.
Yeah.
And I mean, we broke even on the table. You know,
Oh, yeah.
and we sold like $2,500 worth of stuff. That's how expensive that small press booth was. You know, and then between everything and getting in there and transportation and hotel,
yep, food,
oh,
right?
it
Adds up. If you got a family, I did Tampa Bay. I want to say around 2019. Yeah, before I launched GROM, I literally went there with some GROM stuff and just, you know, hey, this looks cool. Could I buy it? I'm like, you can check out our crowdfunding campaign. What's crowdfunding? I'm like, damn, am I doing this the right way? So it's like, it's a challenge because you gotta spend money to get out there, and there's no guarantee you're gonna make that money, but you do make some good connections. And I did make a great connection that's like, you gotta hit up this Comic-Con in Ohio, this one here, because these are the ones that are actually where creators can really sell their stuff and make a good connection. Because he's like, where you're at, you're competing with people doing ceramic mugs, people doing t-shirts. They you know, they're not here for the comics, even though it's a Comic-Con. But it's just a learning experience. So everything is a battle. So if you guys really want to make comics, just understand it's blood, sweat, and tears, fueled by passion to keep you going. And for the people who support indie guys like Pete and myself, I want to thank you guys, because we don't exist without you. We don't. And it's so 100%. Hard. It's so hard to get you guys, right? It's
That's
so
the only gatekeeping,
right?
I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
When it came to comics, that was the only gatekeeping level I was ever comfortable with, was the customer deciding whether or not they wanted to open or close their wallet to a product I was making. Other than that, I didn't ever like the gatekeeping that would come from distribution or other publishers or the retailers that would decide, well, you know, I'd rather stock, you know, this company's got 10 covers out, I'd rather stock all 10 of those than one of your book. You know, all of that kind of stuff, I never liked that stuff. That's why we slowly got away from it. But we had to be in it for me to understand what I didn't like about it. So I do understand when people want to go down certain avenues where I'm like, man, I see them doing that, and I'm just like, I've been there, done that. I would never go back. But it's like, if they've never been there, you know, it's like, all right, you know, some people, like we said before, you got to make your own mistakes. You know, and hopefully it goes well. Hopefully they have success with it. But at the same time, every time I see someone, like, you know, really excited about they're in Diamond, or really excited about that they're going to some big show, or, you know, I'm like, all right, you know, I hope you have success, because I've known myself and then way too many other people where I'm like, it's not the best place if you're not prepared for it. And by prepared, I mean it's one of those old adages of how do you make $1 million in comics? You start off with 2 million.
That's a great way. Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Oh.
But that's the funny part, though, is that now we're seeing things a bit differently. I'm seeing, even on Alterna's side of things, the crowdfunding, the ability to reach over directly with the reader, completely different than it was before, where, you know, you have to go through the traditional ways of doing it. And, you know, we kind of lucked out in terms, like, well, not lucked out, but we missed the boat of the heyday of the great tag team of the newsstand and the comic shop. You know, that was when comics were just flourishing. because they were
Spinner
everywhere.
racks. I got a lot of
and
good
then,
comics that
yeah,
way.
you know, and then you can go to the comic shop and find all these other great things, and you know, get the back issues you missed that weren't on the newsstand, you know, and then all of a sudden, slowly but surely, the newsstand goes away because the publishers found that it was just not worth it, apparently, to have a giant, massive distribution system that was essentially advertising for them. You know, did this ever happen to you at either a signing or a show where someone would come up to your table and be like, "Oh, they still make comics?" You know, there's still new comics that are out. I was at actual comic conventions, two different conventions, and people came up with the same story. They said they saw our comics and they said, "Oh wow, these are new. People still make new comic books," and I'm like, there's new comics all around you. This is a Comic-Con. And they're like, oh, I thought these were like all just old, you know, collectibles and vintage stuff, and no one was making new comics anymore because I don't see them anymore. You know, so they don't have a local comic shop. They don't see them because they're not in like the newsstands or the grocery stores or the convenience stores. There's no spinner racks anywhere. The comics are, for all intents and purposes, to most people, they're dead. You know, so they go to a Comic-Con. They literally think this is just some kind of nice, let's remember comics.
Right, not that there's people still trying to do
people
new
making
stuff,
them.
and there's companies there set up, you know, putting out new stuff. But it's a hurdle, like you said, when you said gatekeeping, and when you said how people have like a book in Diamond and how you know they got to learn, right? And I was one of those people where I thought, hey, if I have my book in a comic book shop, it would open the doors in some way where people could find my work. And with GROM, we were fortunate enough to land a distribution deal with a small, obscure distributor that would get our book into comic book shops. And for me, what killed me was there was no real promotion. You know, it's like if I check their social media, they're not pushing my book saying, hey, check this out, this is coming out, like repeatedly. It was like me doing all the hype, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then once my book came out, it's like, okay, it's just whatever sold, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, it's in Diamond, but you know, if people were purchasing Marvel and the DC stuff, and the real obscure distributors on page 999, and the guy who owns a comic book shop doesn't even know it exists to order any amount of copies, there's a real crazy level of complexity that you don't even really know. It's like you think, okay, it's a comic book shop, people are seeing that things are going on. And it's like, I did get to that level. We did sell a decent amount according to the numbers. We sold about 2,000 units, which for me is great. But it's like, there was still nothing to bring them back to me. It's like, I asked to see if I could have my website on there or like some kind of social media where people read the comic. They know, okay, I could follow GILLY here. No, we don't do that. Okay, but then I noticed they did that for other titles. Okay. Then there was the matter of my social media came into account. And they're like,
did you want to name this publisher, or did you rather they?
At this point, yeah, it's just it will be the distributor. I can't say publisher, right? Because publishers handle things somewhat better, and they pay up front for certain stuff. It's what can I say? It's the distributor that shall not be named. But they weren't crazy about how I was promoting my work, the hashtags I were using. And I'm like, hey, I just need anyone to read my book. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. I know I got a great book, and if you came for a comic, you're gonna enjoy what I got. And being that I did my own thing, I guess, they didn't put my comic book out on Comic-Con tables. So that for me was a big deal because before
they kind of like blacklisted you.
I was gatekept by my own distributor if you look at it, because it's like, my whole thing with signing also with a distributor is you can get in spaces that I can't. I can't go to San Diego Comic-Con. I can't go to this one. I can't go to that one. I can't go to that one. But if you have tables set up there, people are going to walk by. They're going to see GROM. They're going to be like, okay, what's this? Okay, yeah, I want to buy this. So it's sales. You know what I'm saying? You keep whatever percentage you got from a part of the contract, and I'll get whatever little I get. But it's me getting out there. My whole thing is fighting to get out there. And you with a distributor that gatekeeps your own book, it's kind of crazy. And I talked to them, and I'm like, hey, I'm not happy with how things are going. What's the marketing plan? What's the, once I said marketing plan, it's like, whoa, what marketing plan? Like, wouldn't you have a marketing plan? You guys are drumming up hype for comics, aren't you? Or shouldn't you? So when I realized how they handled their stuff, a lot of their own little, I guess, fraternity of creators will get their books
Now,
featured in
I'm
New
guessing-
Comic Book Day or
I'm
Free
guessing
Comic
you
Book Day.
retained
Yeah.
your rights at least.
Of course.
Okay,
we-
because some
like-
people don't. They're not as fortunate.
Right, so it was publishing rights, right? Because they would have the publishing rights for X amount of years. I give them that. We handle things amicably in that sense, and I wish nobody ill will in any kind of way. Even that company, I don't want to see anything. I mean, I would like to see them flourish, because you never know what happens in the future. But my whole thing is just been a struggle to just share my comic, and being in comic book shops didn't have the effect that I thought. So I'm like, it's really you doing all the legwork, promoting and everything. It's crazy. If we even look at Netflix, everyone knows Guillermo del Toro, I hope. He did Pan's Labyrinth, right? He's done a lot of crazy stories. He has a Pinocchio movie on Netflix. I didn't know this. I randomly just searching for something. I saw Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro. I'm like, are you kidding me? Why is Netflix not promoting this out there on all their channels? It's so crazy. The advertising space, the marketing space is really hard for cool comics to just get out there.
To be honest, it goes back to what we were talking about before. It goes back to the fact that now they advertise through superficial means.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's not about who they think this story will resonate with, and then they pitch the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the character. It's not about the design. It's not about anything like that. It's about, does this hit certain notes where we feel like the audience that will see this will find something they resonate with it on a superficial level. You know, and if they don't, and they don't see anything like that, which is so unfortunate, because if anything, that kind of stuff, it not only is it just detrimental to just society in general, but it doesn't last. It doesn't last because everything you are now superficially is so fleeting. You know, like you're young, well, you're old tomorrow. You know, you're a healthy man, woman, whatever you are, you know, in terms of your youth, your vigor, your vitality, and you relate to the 20, 30 somethings. Well, that fades too. You know, you're single. Well, now you're a parent. You're a child. Well, now you're a teenager. You're a teenager. Well, now you're an adult. You're an adult. Well, now you know what I mean? Everything with time changes all of us. You know, and then your mindset as well, because for a lot of different things, you'll go through different experiences in life. So if all you're trying to do is constantly market on the superficial level, which is like, you know, like this, everything's like this superficially, it doesn't matter. You know, marketing on a deeper level, though, and hitting those notes and actually something that's more universal. That's the funny part, is that it is more universal. You'll actually get a bigger audience marketing it in a way that doesn't just appeal to basically what you look like, who you're interested in sleeping with, what kind of gender you are, what kind of race you are. It's
the
insane.
Backwards approach to it, right? Like we're seeing almost a regression. It's like
it's a massive regression.
Like, and the problem is, and we're in this digital age, and it's all about you. I want to believe that it's all about money, right? Because then we think about this approach, and then a lot of, you know, movies didn't make what they're projecting, or this. It's I don't want to say it's a conspiracy, but it's like it's almost like they're creating projects that are doomed to fail, and they're blaming like who they're blaming. Whatever happened to making a story for making a great story? Like, storytelling is survival in a way. If you go to the caveman, right? You know, they would tell you don't go around by this lake because they seen a crocodile by there that, you know, killed 2 hunters, and you know, man, maybe I can't go by this lake. It was a story that told you don't go by the lake, because if they tell you just don't go there, something's going to happen. You want to go and see what happens. But they tell you this happened, this person died, right? Look at the story of the boy who cried wolf, right? You know, when they tell you, hey, listen, don't lie, it's like, hey, whatever. But then when they tell you, hey, this boy who lied, he kept on lying about the wolf, and then the wolf ate his ass, and then, you know, he was gone, he died. The kids are looking at you, holy crap, he died. I got to watch, maybe I got to take this lying a certain way. So there's so much power in storytelling that I'm just so taken aback by powerful corporations that, you know, create like our cherished childhood franchises, right? I look at Star Wars, right, as one, right? Darth Revan from Knights of the Old Republic, one of my favorite characters in Star Wars history, is not even from Lucas, but is that Lucas created the blueprint, right? And people that have a passion could just create a Star Wars story that will shine. And we're getting subpar entertainment from corporations that have had history of putting out great quality entertainment. And it's so crazy. It's almost like, are we in some kind of Twilight Zone here?
Yeah, I think honestly too, though, on a deeper level,
Oh my gosh.
that kind of marketing and that kind of push, it also hurts because not everything that's made right now is like that. And there's stuff that is hitting those superficial check marks, but it has a deeper story. But it's being pushed still on the superficial level, and people will then ignore it if they're tired of seeing that kind of stuff. So it does a disservice then to that stuff that's trying to actually tell something of merit. And then on top of it, we do say entertainment and everything like that and escapism, but at the same time, storytelling is communication of ideas.
Yes, sir.
It's the easiest and most accessible way to communicate any idea. And you could do that generationally, you could do that, internationally. So when you have something broken down like that, and then now it's turned into, it's entertainment, it's big money, it's this and that. But when you're talking about storytelling, which is a communication device to translate basically the human experience from whatever is going on within this story, and then it resonates with you or someone else or whatever it may be, and it affects you, it impacts you, it has some kind of a meaning in your life. Once you start tampering with that, you're essentially tampering with the communication from society to society, culture to culture, person to person. So now all of a sudden you have this massive thing where you're not just messing up someone's entertainment or ruining their afternoon or whatever it may be, or ruining a favorite childhood character or something like that. You're actually breaking down the communication culturally between people, and you're brainwashing, gaslighting, doing all kinds of different things to them on different levels, whether consciously they're aware of it or not. And that's the powerful impact of storytelling. And that's why it's so insane to see when some people kind of just dismiss it as, oh, you're just upset, you're just stupid entertainment or fictional character, yada yada, whatever it may be. But that goes all the way back to the very beginning of human existence and experience storytelling. So you break that down, you break down the fabric of what it means to be human.
Exactly. And shouldn't entertainment be sacred to a degree, right? I mean, like, if you go for entertainment to be entertained, video games, right, movies, whatever, and you get kind of hit with this, and it kind of pushes you out, it's like, where do you go?
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like, that's your
and
safe
on that
haven,
level
right?
too.
Some people have different, storytelling is a safe space.
Yeah,
right?
and it's a chance to be exposed to something outside of yourself. And when the powers that be maybe want to take that opportunity to expose you to something in a way that maybe will warp your mind or someone else's mind, it really begins to get a little strange. And when you see some people that are like, they advocate for, well, it's only censorship if the government gets involved. But the thing is that the government historically, all governments of the world historically, use these tools to not immediately go A to B with the censorship. They'd rather have you kind of, let's do a roundabout way that's a little easier
There's
for
levels
people
to this.
Yeah, so, and then you can't fight back and go, well, the government's censoring you. Well, what do you mean the government's censoring me? It's just, this is just a different kind of thing by this company and the story that's being taken place, So it's very interesting to see that breakdown that occurs when people all of a sudden start dismissing any kind of standard, any kind of objectivity within storytelling, any kind of moral or message that's something that is at least trying to achieve a virtue of some level, And when heroism and villainy, the modern day thing is to just constantly blur them all.
Right, have this gray area between them.
And you can still explain away and make complex and interesting villains, even relatable villains, where you're I get where they're coming from. But it's still, at the end of the day, they're a villain. And why? Because they're doing these different things, as opposed to the hero that's doing these different things. So it's such a shame.
It's a shame, man. This is... I never thought I would be at this level of seeing just the dip in entertainment, being radicalized. And like I said, I look at comics as an escape from that. And when you're seeing, a lot of comics, pushing like a certain message, superficial message, right? That's outside of the core storytelling, outside of the identity of some of these storied characters, these iconic characters. It's almost like it's an attack, and it's crazy because if people are like, oh, it's just entertainment, like, well, dang, if it's like happening in entertainment, like it's it, man. That's supposed to be the one thing where it's supposed to be like,
yeah, that's how ideas reach the masses.
Exactly.
Other than the news, which is wait.
That's a whole other.
That's a whole other can of worms. That's a whole different other kind of storytelling. But
Seriously.
that it's still storytelling, and it's for profit. That's the thing too. A lot of people forget with the news. This isn't just out of the goodness of their hearts, non-profit. These are for-profit industries, big bucks, often controlled by the bigger companies that control your storytelling entertainment.
Exactly.
It's very interesting. Nowadays, there's not the same thing it was like 100 years ago, where you could say it's just somebody making a book. Maybe the publisher is small, and then whatever it may be. It's a very different system now than what it was, and it feels as if there's so many different monopolies set up that everything just looks the other way. So that's when it turns into, well, going back to, well, it's not government censorship. Well, it's interesting when you say it's not government censorship, because when we were making a film of The Chair, you film in certain states, you do certain things with your film, you hire certain people for your film, you get tax incentives. That's
nice.
The government saying, we'll give you some money, we'll help you out, as long as you do these things, film in these places, put this kind of stuff in your movie.
That, yeah.
So they're subsidizing and incentivizing the creation of entertainment and storytelling. Why would the government be interested in doing that? So it's very interesting when it goes back to all that kind of stuff. So it's insane to me when people can't really kind of see that it's like, get through the heart of all of that, clear it away, and really don't necessarily close yourself off from the world. But understand that the stuff that you're presented with, you're purposefully presented with that. There's a lot of things going on that matter in your life that impact, like we were talking about with your artist and his daughter that had passed away.
Oh, yeah.
That's real. That matters. The bullshit going on, and someone said this about someone else, and the whatever happened on the that's bullshit. And depending on what it is, it might hurt, it might affect, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's so sad that that's what people really bog down about. When you've got family, you've got friends. I mean, hopefully people out there have that, and there's real things going on in your life that you're probably ignoring and not giving a crap about. And meanwhile, you care so much about this other dumb crap going on with whoever that you don't know who the hell they are, and they don't matter. And it's interesting. And I mean, sorry to go on this.
The superficial is what matters.
It's another superficial layer. Right?
The
The superficial relationship of like, oh, I see this person exist online, so they're more important and prevalent to me in my life than the person that's within my own house. It's crazy when you really think of it that way. But everything is but that's what happens though through the storytelling that ends up getting manipulated. Is it starts kind of warping the mind to think that these are the priorities. This is the important thing. Not the adversity and the overcoming and the, having a virtue of sacrifice and caring about those that are close. Like, even just think about the concept of the superhero with the secret identity. Why is their secret identity so important to them? Because if someone was to find out, it hurts the ones they love. They're already endangered 24/7. So it's not about them, it's about the ones that they love. They're looking out for them. There's a sacrifice to that. And then they also sacrifice their personal lives most of the time because they have to put the superhero kind of nature ahead of sometimes what they want. That's incredible. And we all do that in one way or another. We all make little sacrifices. We all find, I think, something to relate to about that. You don't have to put on a cape or spandex or whatever or have superpowers to make sacrifices in your life. We all know people who've done that. We all know, maybe we have parents, maybe that's us, maybe we have siblings, whoever it may be. So that kind of stuff resonates because of it, because of what we experience. It doesn't matter what they look like. It's what they're doing, you know, and that's the powerful, important part of storytelling. But if you don't see that occurring in storytelling, if it erodes away, if it all becomes about selfishness, and then saying that virtue of selfishness is heroism, no, it's not. That's not heroism.
Heroism is sacrifice, buddy.
Yeah.
It's 100% that. And the dynamic you talked about with secret identity and superhero, like for me, I think that's a dynamic. I think it's awesome to just see that evolve. You know, if you follow a superhero as he gets older, as maybe, will he have a family? Will he not? Like the sacrifice of wanting to bring justice, and then the sacrifice of, you know, trying to keep his family. Like there's so many things you can do. And I think almost where I kind of got disinterested from like Marvel and DC, you know, as I was just getting older, where it's just like I'm not seeing kind of like an evolution to the storytelling in a way with superheroes. It's kind of like I'm just seeing like, you know, this roundabout cookie cutter, like, okay, we'll have this issue number 1, okay, for, you know, then we'll do this issue number 1, and like the impactful, really impactful stories that I remember growing up, and even, you know, into comics, into being a teenager and whatever, like that like waned considerably. So, you know, my thing is you can still make superheroes fun. It's not to make it seem like, oh well, Superman because he's just, you know, this kind of way about justice, like that doesn't work now. Like give me a superhero, give me a Superman story to write, like give me that platform. I'll tell you how I can make Superman interesting without doing kind of the stuff that I've seen with him. It's just right.
I mean, they did it for decades. Nico says, let's see, sorry, Pete, but publishers couldn't have saved newsstands. In my country, newsstands never went away, but they're useless because nobody stops to check them, especially young kids. Well, there was so many. That's the thing. I'm not saying they should bring them back because it's too late. It's too late
now.
At this
Everything
point.
With the cell phone and digital.
No,
it's like
the time for, there were so many steps taken between now and 30 years ago where newsstands it's an impossibility at this point to make newsstands become a success again. It's just, I mean, we were there for 2 years, and my biggest problem with the newsstand space was 100% returnability and zero accountability. And I mean even zero accountability in terms of like where they would put your stuff. Like we would be sometimes, instead of with the other comics at Books A Million, they'd put us with like Auto Trader. For some reason they felt like, oh, this is the one to alphabetize. Not to put with the,
Come on, man.
Crazy. Crazy. Yeah, I would get pictures from customers,
God.
You know, being like, they got you guys, like, I'm looking for you. You said you got them there, and I'm looking around, and then I see, oh, you guys are with, like, magazines. And they're not just thinking, I'll put them with the rest of the comics. And then when we would get returns back, because it's a returnability system, it would be like 7-8 months later, we're still getting returns in on stuff that like is in the negative numbers now. So if we sent them like 2,000, we'd be getting like 2,010 at this point now being returned back to us. And I'm like, how are you guys returning more than we sent to you? So there's all different kinds of weird things that happen in the newsstand now. It's just the whole system is a complete nightmare. But most newsstands don't carry comics now at this point. So it's one of those things of, it is the way it is.
I want to ask you a question because since you have, you know, Alterna and, you know, trying to get out there, like, comics aren't dead. I just want to say that.
Not at all.
As long as people love comics, as long as people like you and me are creating cool stuff, I don't see it as being dead. I do see that the space, like, if you look at Kickstarter, you look at Indiegogo, yeah, comics, but there's so many out there. There's certain comics that get featured above other comics. There's an algorithm to it. It's like a lot of the people that have found my comics, GROM, on Indiegogo or on Kickstarter, they were the ones that like went deep sea diving looking for gold.
That's the modern newsstand, right?
Under,
yeah.
And they would just find like a hidden gem in backing my book. So how, like, then there's this other crowdfunding platform that's just for comics called Zoop that I found out about. And I got some crazy cool comics, and I submitted my project GROM to them, and I never heard back. Twice I sent it, and I never, hey, thanks. And not even the generic, you know, platitude, oh, hey, we liked it, but, you know, unfortunately, just never responded back. I'm like, man, if I can't get on a comic book platform that's just for comic, what does that tell you about this demand for indie crowdfunding space? or even an indie comic book enterprising space, but we're not seeing. It's just the struggle to just find eyeballs, right?
Yep.
Pete, what would you say is your what's a remedy to that? Because even with Indiegogo, I heard about shadow banning, about they're trying to have a certain look to sell their corporation because it's going to be bought out. It's man, what do we do to attract
I've always been
to get on that, just getting more people. It's like no one knows, right?
I've always been frustrated with the comic industry in the modern sense because of what you're talking about, which is accessibility. So if you can't access these things, they don't exist, right? So if they're not on the shelf, they don't exist. I always love getting these conversations with retailers that they were like, Alterna doesn't really sell well here. And I'm like, oh, what do you have? Because I'd be like, you want to carry our newest book? This is what it is, blah, blah, blah. And they go, well, Alterna doesn't really sell well here. I go, what do you have? And it'll be one book from 5 years ago.
Come on.
And I'm like, we've released 70 books in that time period. If you're going to base all of the future sales on one particular book, do you do that for any other publisher whatsoever? And then there'd be ones, too, that don't carry it at all. And then they go, well, no one's coming in here asking for Alterna. Yeah. And I go, in your store, no one knows about Alterna.
Exactly. They got to discover it to know what to ask for. Do you
go to the grocery store and go, hey, do you have this item that no one's ever heard about and you don't carry? They'll look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was always these weird conversations. Point, I always thought that the comic industry should have something and I don't know, I think it's already taken, but something let's say if it was called spinnerack.com. And you could even submit that your comic is new, it just came out, it's available, and then here's the website to go buy it, and here's upload the cover image and a little synopsis of what it is, and then it could go up and then be listed. And then it's this is when it came out, this is the date, and anyone can then access those dates and look through the genre, the date, the whatever it may be, the publisher name, whatever. This big database of comics that exist. And of course that sounds like an undertaking, but at the same time, I think that's something that would be massively useful because it would unite no matter what it was, the bigger companies, the indie publishers, the self-publishers, the crowdfunded publishers, whatever it may be. You could upload that and then have that accessed and go, oh, hey, look, there's this book that exists and it's actually there. The fact that even in this day and age, I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 larger websites that contain most of the comics that come out right now that you could go and buy and have them mail it to you. So if you don't have a local comic shop, you're going to eBay. That's it. And then on eBay, you're taking your chances. That's strange to me as well. If you think about in terms of retail that sells product, if they're not going to have it on a newsstand in the stores and that kind of a thing, comics need to get with the times. Even something like previewsworld.com, we talked about getting into Diamond and getting into the comic shops. I've always thought, why don't they just have a ship to store feature where there's a drop down of all the stores? You could type in, locally, use the comic shop locator feature that they have, and then you can pay for it and it goes right into the comic shop's account, and then you'll just pick it up on the day of in the shop.
As opposed too much sense, man.
Yeah, and it's yes, these things take time, and these things you have to do these kinds of things on the back end with the website creation and whatever. But instead of having the big, gigantic, massive waste of a time of a phone book that Previews is, put that money that they put towards every month, put that money towards a fully operational website, and maybe even have it set up like a crowdfunding system, and you can see the bar go up. You know what I mean? Hey, look at that. You could point to it. 600 pre-orders, 1,000, 2,000, Yeah. Make it convenient for people and accessible. But instead, the comic industry is just, and this is what happens when there's no competition, really. There's no incentive for Diamond to really do something like that. You're starting to see, I think, Lunar and a couple other distributors starting now to sort of get in the game here and there, but still not on a big enough level to change anything. Time, will tell. We'll see how it goes, but at the same time, I love the way it's going for indie creators right now, and then even for the readers especially who want to back and support those kinds of things. instead of every time we would talk to comic shops, they'd say, you know, send customers to us and then we'll stock your books. And I go, this isn't 1989. If I'm going to get customers,
how does that work?
And send them to
That's
you.
So frustrating.
You know,
exactly.
so if I'm going to do all that work, right?
I might as well just do.
Might as well just do it.
Get them that way. Yeah, like just not even you become the unnecessary middleman. I just don't need you. And I think what I'm upset about is like there's so much untapped resource as far as, you know, talented indie creators that at least me, I don't see an actual will, right, to want to scout this indie talent. You know, like if it's like a writing competition or artist competition, I feel like that's rigged. I don't know if that's just me being me, but it's like I feel like if you look at manga, right, just this boom and just anime, just like it's because they're always creating just stories and different type of stuff, and someone can find something they like. And comic books used to be that. It used to be where you go into a comic book shop, find something, and then it got to the point where it's about, okay, making money. Then it got to the point, and I get it's a business, but like, why can't we just find a nice middle ground? It's so heavily politicized. It is more division
again, that's what happens.
Than anything, and it's just so
exactly
crazy that I would never believe that. And like, again, manga and everything doing so good. You got Chainsaw Man here. You got all these crazy ideas. Clothes that like come alive and like give you powers. They got so many awesome stuff, and it's like, why can't comic books be that played? Why can't we have like even Marvel? Why can't they have like an imprint that's like, okay, we're legit gonna like look up indie talent and we'll just put a small amount of resources to this, do it in a small way, and stuff that resonates. Maybe something can grow. Maybe something. You got to get people excited about just stories, and it's hard when you're seeing a lot of the cool stuff like Spider-Man, Batman, and it's just like, okay, like how many times are you gonna create a different variation of Spider-Man? How many times are you gonna like just create a new darn superhero that maybe, you know, could usher in whatever you're trying to look for?
Well, that's the funny part, though. And see, this is the mindset
too much risk,
that
right?
This is the mindset that everyone, you know, ourselves included, we have to get out of. Comics is not Marvel and DC. Comics is everything that is encompassing whoever's making a comic. So when you're talking about what you're talking about right here, when you're thinking manga up against like Marvel DC, why doesn't Marvel DC do this, do this, do this? Comics does everything that you're talking about. Comics,
and no one will know,
people,
right? Because the normies don't know. They don't. They're just like they're seeing what's in the movie theaters. They're seeing that, and it's like, okay, like,
and that's where
they're not seeing the beauty of comics. Like, could you imagine if a Marvel movie
that's where
would
everyone
throw an advertisement of a comic
has
book?
To take over. We have to take over the conversation.
Christ.
That's what it is. You know, where it turns from. Yeah, it turns from the conversation being about comics being just solely about superhero, Marvel, DC, the comics being about genre, the way film is about genre. You know, what kind of movies do you like? You know, that kind of a thing. What kind of music do you like? But again, that's when if they're controlling the conversation, which is why they really want to control the conversation.
They are controlling the conversation.
When they want to flood the market and push anybody off of that shelf, force the hand of the retailer to think twice before ordering the next whatever it may be that's going to compete with them, but not in the comic sphere. Not in the comic. They don't care about the comics. They don't care about if you have a great selling comic. Your comic's only going to sell so much anyway. What they care about,
polluted the landscape.
What they care about is that comic becoming Ninja Turtles, Walking Dead, etc., etc. That's what they care about. That's when it hurts them. That's when it becomes an issue for them. And the more that they can push your comic out of the space, the better it is that they will dominate the space that matters to them. So that's why, as continuing to have the conversation and think that like they have the power, we're giving them power if we make them think they have that. They don't have the ownership on comics. They don't have the ownership on creation of characters and stories and whatever it may be. But in terms of people who, and I see it a lot of the time still, in pitches, it'll be, you know, leading with, you know, I'm working on a screenplay for this. That to me, your book is dead to me. Your book is dead because it tells me you already have one foot out the door of comics immediately before the issue even got published. It tells me that you're not going into it saying that I want to make the comic, and if the comic warrants it and there's enough interest, then hell, you know, if it's a film, if it's a game, if it's this, it's that, hey,
they're trying to look for tie-ins before even.
This is already right off the bat. the comic isn't really the thing that's important to me. It's just a vehicle to get somewhere else. And that's exactly what's hurting comics, is comics are being viewed as a lesser. Hey, I'm settling, I could make it my, it's a comic, instead of a film.
They're dumbing it
and
down,
it's like,
but yeah. If I'm
you're not settling.
Yeah, here's one thing I would say about comic books. Like, there's a saying, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And if you look at a comic book with all the comic book panels, a great storytelling medium for me, you can argue that it's like, hey, comic books are also great cinematic blueprints, because we've seen a lot of great comic book panels, make it to the silver screen. Like in Spider-Man, you have one shot framed, right, that we've seen before. Like, that's the beauty of comic books in itself, being a major driving storytelling force. But again, it's like you said, it's like we're not. It's it's almost sad when you think about it. Like, what could be, and there's a control factor, man.
There needs to be a paradigm shift, and there has to be a paradigm shift starting from the comic creators who are already kind of known to people. There's only a couple of them that are actually like, comics are great. The shift, you see it all the time. You see comic creators that, and they started with the companies doing this kind of thing a while ago, being like, comics, they're not just for kids.
No, that works,
man. As soon as they're doing that,
is always associated for kids, though. That's the problem, right?
Yeah, as soon as they're doing that, they've already lost the fight. Because imagine pitching any product in the world to an adult, let's say, because what they're trying to pitch is to the non-comic reader. Hey, you don't need to be embarrassed. These aren't just for kids. Imagine trying to pitch any product like that to somebody, saying like, hey, I know you've heard that these things are just like for little kids and stuff, but like, they're not. You could read them too. You don't need to be embarrassed. You want to read one? That's you're not playing from a position of strength. You're already coming at it. You're already belittling your product and your creation. You're already saying that it only really appeals to kids. And then you're also saying, please just give it a shot. I mean, only kids really read this, but if you read it, then we could actually say adults read it too.
That's a horrible approach to marketing.
There's this weird, this weird inferiority complex that comics have had for like almost 40 years in some way, shape, or form. And it's great to see, and I'm starting to see it kind of swing the other way now, where it kind of started that way a little bit in the 90s, but then it kind of dissipated again when everything kind of tanked, and then it started coming back up again, and then Disney bought it, and Marvel, and everything's going on with DC, so that's weird, and everyone looks to those two as the standard bearer for comics. But now we're starting to see indies. I'm really seeing indies starting to take control of the conversation. And you don't have to just say, well, this isn't just for kids. You're just making stories. You're just making characters. And people that are starting to become fed up with either what they loved when they were growing up and now it's very different, or they just aren't really into superheroes. But they're seeing comics and go, man, like that art's really cool. That character's cool. That story sounds great. So they're starting to see that from the indie sphere. And that, I think, we're going to probably have to give it like another 5 to 10 years before it starts really taking more control.
Wow.
But, if you're talking about, and I hate to say it like this because some people are probably like, damn, Pete, we're going to have to wait that long. I think, honestly, we're going to have to see in like 20 years from now a very, very, very different landscape in comics, mostly dominated by the independents you're seeing today. I've said it before. I compare right now. Take a while,
but it's not going to be overnight, man.
Yeah,
it's not.
I compare right now to what we saw in the '60s, when Marvel was essentially an indie company, more or less.
That's a good way to put it. That's actually a good way to put it.
And we're seeing a lot of that right now, and at the very beginning of it. And then if you look 20 to 30 years past that point in the '60s, you're talking about the '80s and '90s of Marvel. You're talking about the heyday of that kind of company. So 15, 20 years from now, we're going to be seeing a very different conversation in this. And if you're a creator and that scares you, if that timeline scares you, you go then 20 quit. Years on, then you really, honestly, you do, because it's not something that you have to be married to this. You know what I mean? Like when we were talking before about dating and relationships and this and that kind of a thing. Yeah, you gotta be in it to win it with this. It's got to be a part of you. If this is just like, Yeah, if this
not a
is just
quick
one of
sprint.
those things of like, yeah, I could create a comic. How hard could that be? You know, I like comics. I read comics. How hard could making a comic be? If that's the mindset, and it's not just like, no, I gotta do this. I got stories to tell. I have to get these out there. I love comics. I want to be a part of this. You know, this means a lot to me. If that's not in you, you know, go find something else to do with your time. Enjoy being a fan. Maybe make your own stuff, but don't try to get it to a publisher. You know, don't try to put a lot of time and money into it. Just keep it as a hobby. Keep it as something for fun. Because honestly, it will be soul crushing for you. And I know people are like, wow, you know, that's depressing to hear that. But it's like anything else. It's like anything else. You know, if you're talking about major league sports, if you're talking about being a musician, like making a living,
put that 10,000 hours in somewhere.
Yeah, you know, so comics are tough. You know, any kind of job is tough. I'm not trying to say, oh, comics are tougher than the average job, but think about any job, any kind of skill job, especially. You know, if someone goes in there and is just like, yeah, I think it might be a good time today. You know, I'm in buildings a lot. I like buildings. Yeah, I'm gonna go build a building. I'm not gonna go learn to be an architect. I'm not gonna go, you know, into construction. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna apprentice. I'm just gonna like build a building today. You know, I mean, hey, how hard could that be? I see buildings everywhere. You know, someone's making them. That's kind of the mindset sometimes people have with comics, in a sense of like, I'll just go do one. You know, learn the basics, really immerse yourself in it, get familiar with it, get comfortable with it, fall in love with it, hell, even fall out of love and then back in love with it, and really stick with it. And because if you can't do that, get the hell away from it. Just enjoy the hobby, enjoy what people are putting out, and continue to make it for fun. Draw for fun, write for fun, put your stuff out. That's great. But I see too many people getting their hearts broken because they think it's too easy to do. So, you know, I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to depress anybody, but it's one of those
things. Then you got people that will see maybe crowdfunding and maybe see a dollar amount and be like, well, I could put something together and earn that amount. And then maybe you do earn that amount, and then you'll have a project for X amount of years that's not fulfilled. And it's because there's a lot more to this than just, you know, thinking you can just, you know, make some money. It's a process. And I kind of wished we didn't have to wait 20 years to see a change, and I believe that, as Peter said, that, like,
it's like a generational thing.
I feel like we're entering just the beginning of what could be a cool renaissance, but I feel like there's a big outrage, right, of a franchise. We'll look at the Amazon Rings of Power. There's a divide there. Star Wars, there's a divide there. And you'll have many people, YouTube influencers even, with a big platform that'll make a monetary living out of just harping and bemoaning this stuff or just crushing it. And I get it. I get that kind of, you know, let's watch the car burn. Let's watch the car wreck. Let's watch the fire burn, and let's just talk about it. And I get that, but I wish we would have, maybe even from YouTube influencers, hey, you know what? Being that we've just had our hearts torn out for the umpteenth time by these large corporations with these superficial stories, you know what? I saw this in the underground, and, you know, push maybe a couple cool books that look interesting, just to get people to know that there's comics that exist out there that are bringing the storytelling chops. And I feel like if YouTube influencers or people with platforms would actually do this, it could
if they want to see
such a way where the landscape would just, and if
it would expedite that change. You know, and if they truly do want to change, you gotta start living the change. You know, otherwise all you're doing is giving them free press. You're giving everything you hate free press. They want that. They love that. Because the more you talk about how much you hate them, the less you talk about how much you love something else. And then the less you talk about how much you love something else, guess what? That thing fails. Hatred doesn't kill. Hatred, criticism, etc., does not kill a product. It doesn't kill a book. It doesn't kill a movie. It doesn't kill a show. What kills those things is silence. Silence. How many things get canceled and you're like, I never even heard of that. You know, they're not talking about it. No one's talking about it. Silence killed it. Now, if someone hates that, right, and then you're like, well, man, there's a lot of hate for this thing, and you look at it and you're like, shit, that looks really good to me. I'll check it out. You know, how many times does that happen? That happens a lot on both sides of the fence. You know, so the more that you got these big platforms talking about that stuff without really directing any kind of conversation ever.
I wish that would happen.
You know, maybe
the
even
power scope would just
even if they did
shift.
80-20, you know, even if 80% of the conversation they want to have, they want to crap on the things they're upset about, and 20%, 20%, you know, every 5 things you talk about, you know, yeah.
Because if you're YouTubing like X amount of days, like that 5% is probably once a month. That will do such crazy numbers. And here's one thing. You mentioned a great point about customers closing, opening wallets, right? If you share someone's story, that's not meaning someone's going to buy something, right? You're just sharing it. Hey, this looks cool. Okay, well, let me see, because it might not be my cup of tea. Okay, I won't back it. But just getting the conversation out there that, hey, there's a movement going on. Check Indiegogo, check Kickstarters. Hey, here's something I saw. Even if it's on a 95-5 ratio, right? You're taking the initiative, right? You're
that's how you actually chip away.
Change.
Yeah.
But I get you again. I can't tell anyone how to run their platform. I can just only wish if I had that platform. Eventually, through time, maybe 15 years from now, I'll have my YouTube platform. I'll have 10,000, 20,000 subscribers. I can kind of do what I would like to see, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You know, you got to 3 little pigs it. You know what I mean? You got to build the house of brick.
Exactly.
You know,
start with the hay, right? Get to the six.
Yeah,
get to the
brick. You know, we can't. And it's tempting sometimes. You know, you see people building the house of the hay and the sticks, and you're like, oh man, like they're having a good time over there. You know, I'm over here building with friggin' bricks, man. This thing is taking forever. But sooner or later, that wolf is gonna eat their ass.
Oh yeah. I just want to fight the wolf, man. I wish more YouTube influencers would just see the power they had. And be like, man, you know, I hate Disney, what they're doing. I hate this. I hate seeing this franchise.
Yeah, I get it. I empathize with that.
What?
But at the
Boom,
same time,
let's do that. Just, you know, let's start the noise.
Well, that's the thing, is because it's also, it makes people think, because people are so desperate to see it. They want to see that they want to see that there is something, there's something of not just of hope, but something of substance that's being done. People want to see that. You know, so if all they're being directed to is, you know, there is no hope. Everything is crap. Everything you love is being pissed and shit on, and you know what I mean? No one cares about it, and the powers that be are horrible, and you know what I mean?
They hate you, and you know, they don't care about
you know,
franchise. And
but meanwhile, there's so much stuff out there that's being made, stuff of merit too, like really good, substantial stuff that if given the opportunity, if given a spotlight, if given the chance, could actually take off. And we're not talking about like there's 1 or 2 things out there. There's dozens to hundreds of real quality things going on right now that if people were just like in that position, like you were talking about, the fight that they're having with whatever corporation it may be, this would start making a big dent in that. And then you know what the irony is? That then those corporations will actually have to do something, and then they'll actually have to get good.
That we would read in the history books. I'm praying.
And then the indies succeeding because of those influencers shining that spotlight. The indies succeeding will actually make the corporations shake in their boots and go, "We got to do something. Enough of this crap. We got to get back to good."
Exactly.
And that's the irony, is that then everything. Yeah.
I hope it gets there.
But they gotta, and that's the funny part, is that there's so much power, and everyone goes, "What power do you?" I love that Lord of the Rings quote. You know that it's like, do you think that only great power can do evil? You know, but it's the small acts of kindness. You know, ordinary things from people. You know, just small acts of love. That's what keeps the evil at bay. And it's the same thing. It's when you're doing all this indie stuff and it turns into, you know, you got a couple hundred people supporting you, or you've got 1,000 people supporting you. Yeah, maybe that's not 1 million or 2 million the way like the bigger companies have, but all those people being able to help support someone to do this thing, and then that other person does this thing, and then it builds. These are the small acts of kindness and love that keep the evil at bay. And that's the thing, is that that's all I think a lot of people are really trying to ask for. But in return, what I would like to see, because it's unfortunate that there's too many of them right now, and it does piss me off, I'd like to see the creators that are then doing that and taking the money with the crowdfunders fulfill your damn projects and get your stuff out there, or at least keep people updated. I'm seeing way too many projects nowadays where, like, goodness gracious, it shouldn't take you that long, or you shouldn't go that silent about something.
Exactly. Silence
But
is
hey,
what gets
you know,
me, yeah.
it is what it is. But there's so much good though. That's probably like 2 to 5% of the good stuff out there that's doing that. There's so many people doing so many good things and that are really trying to make a difference and make an impact in every situation we've been talking about. So without anything of that, I want to talk about this before we go. Galactic Rodents of Mayhem. Let me just give it a quick refresh to see if anybody is back tonight while we were on the show. Okay, so we're at 63 backers here. You're at 4,393 with 23 days left. Is this the first 30 or the second 30?
This is the second 30. We're grinding. This is the second 30.
So basically right here, guys, I got the description in, the link is in the description of the show, but also here's the link for you guys too. If you guys do want to give this a shot, check it out. Right there is the link. And Gilly, take it away.
Guys, Galactic Rodents of Mayhem is simply a comic book love letter to our awesome childhoods of the 80s and 90s. If you love video games, if you love TMNT, if you love anime, you're going to find every bit of that just oozing its way into GROM, into a fresh, new franchise. I'm not saying it's going to be the next Ninja Turtles, never not saying that, but I'm just saying it's inspired by a lot of what me and Sebastian grew up loving as kids, and we just wanted to put that straight into a book. And capybaras, we went with capybaras. If you guys don't know what a capybara is, Google. They are the most coolest, chill, mellow animal in the world. They even get along with crocodiles. Google capybara riding on a crocodile, the TikTok video. You'll be amazed. If you got a crocodile's respect, you got my respect. And that's why I fell in love with capybaras. Sebastian Navas, the artist on GROM, he suggested, you know, if we're doing something fun and we wanted to go that TMNT route, that we should go with capybaras. And I'm like, what? A cappy what? I Googled it. He said they get along with crocodiles. They do. And GROM was born. Everything just came to me. The names, Ripple, Bash, Mona Lisa, their gunslinger, Gecko father. It's a story of love. It's a story of family. It's a story of overcoming adversity. And it reads like a high-octane roller coaster with up and downs and action and drama beats. It's just look at the artwork. It's a beautiful piece of artwork. And it's made by creators that have a love of storytelling and that use every bit of comic book panel to show something cool, something fun. And all I want to do is just get this book to as many people as possible. By backing GROM, you have the opportunity to get all the GROM bundle, which is essentially Volume 1. If you missed out on Volume 1, we give it episodically with a lot of cool bonus content. We have filler stories, we have behind the scenes footage, we have concept art, we have fan art. We're just trying to create something fun. We're just trying to get you excited about comic books again. And we tried pitching this to the big publishers. We tried going there. Sometimes they pass, and you know what? Just because they pass doesn't mean I'll ever pass on creating my comics. And we got something that we just want to share. Look at that TMNT homage cover. That's just inspiration of what we grew up loving. And TMNT resonated with us. Robotech, there's anime's influences here, video game influence, Mass Effect. You'll get a little bit of everything. And our story is just fun. Well, you're going to get something that looks like it's made by the big boys. Lug, thank you so much, man, for that, doing that little fan video. For people who support, again, like I said, it just means a lot because we can't, get this book done without your support. And it helps. We just want to entertain you. We want to give you a good escape. And we want to take you to a place in storytelling where things get fun,
Right, man.
That's GROM, people.
Good stuff.
Lots of love. Yeah, man.
All right, guys. Everybody in the chat, go check it out. Again, the link is in the chat. It's also in the description of the show. And Gilly's got 23 days left here, 63 backers on board, 4,393 raised. It's a 7,500 fixed goal. So you're just about, what is that, about 3,000 away or so. And,
yeah. We're like 60-something%. I'm not good at math. GJ, thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Brian, appreciate this is some PVC hat patches. Patches, yes, patches is free advertising. You were saying, so yes, we'll look into what other cool rewards we can get if we're able to get to stretch goal rewards. Maybe we could do some stuff. But I'm always going to be plugging GROM, and I always hear from the community. So contact me if you back. Send me an email. I'll always answer any questions that you have, and all I want to do is just what's Pete's doing? Just pass the torch. That's what I want to do. I grew up loving TMNT. I want to pass the torch. I want to just give out that love that I got as a kid, getting crazy for TMNT. I want to do that with GROM. So I love TMNT so much. I got the Shinobi Turtles of Doom. This is the kind of fun I'm having with this book, So, I even have an Earthworm Jim reference there. So we're gonna have fun with this book. So that's it, man. We have TW Ninja Turtles. We have Usagi Yojimbo, right? There's some anthropomorphic titles that were able to stand the test of many years, and I just hope we can kind of, scratch that surface with GROM in some kind of way.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for stopping by today, man. It was a good conversation with you.
Hell yes,
and,
sir.
Everyone that was watching tonight, thank you guys as well for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Good convo. We touched upon a lot of different things.
Hell
and
yes.
That's about it. Gilly, where can they find you?
Guys, you can check out, you can actually check me out at GILLYWritesComics.com. Just GILLYWritesComics.com. You can see my latest campaign that's crowdfunding there, and you can check out all my other works there. And I don't have back issues on some works. Maybe Lair is the only one that I got back issues where you can still, if you want to check out another book that I wrote or see other kind of genres I've touched upon. And, GJ, thank you guys. In the comments, I will watch the video again, and I'll check the live comments out. And if add a comment there, GILLYWritesComics.com is the best place to find me. And all power and respect to Peter Samedi for sharing your alternate platform, for sharing your YouTube platform, because it is hard to even get there. And I appreciate you sharing that space, and you got a great community here. And it's all about the love of comics, man, and I'm into that. So thank you so much for having me on, man. It made my day.
Oh, absolutely, man. It was a pleasure. Everybody, thank you guys for joining us again tonight. Before we go, Brian says digital back issues for purchase. Would you want to put those up there? It's up to you, I guess.
Wow. Man, you see what I don't think, and you got your... That's actually a great idea. I will look to adding that on the website. Digital back issues. Why didn't I think of that? Brian, thank you.
Do you have your own YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel, Gilly Writes Comics. You can check it out. I got almost 300 subscribers, so if you get me to 300, that'd be great. And maybe I might invite Pete one day to do a stream. Maybe I'll bring him on to talk about King Cryptid, because I do have some questions.
Sounds good, man. But yeah, I was going to say, with your own YouTube channel, if you're ever in a rut for, ideas for perks or anything like that, just have a stream. Be like, what do you guys want? Let me see what I could do.
That's a good idea. That's actually a good idea. Just to engage the community a little bit more. Hell
yeah. Just go right directly to the source of who would actually be
Jaded
interested.
One, thank you.
Yeah. But there you go, Jaded One. Yeah.
Don't underestimate the power of a live stream. Hey, here's the thing, the ratio, right? So people got so many subscribers that they'll do a live stream, they'll get 1,000 watching at once, get 4,000 at once. Maybe someone has 3,000 subscribers, might get 20 or 30 watching at once. Me with 300, if I get 2, I'll be great. So that I might start there.
Yeah, there you go.
I get stage fright, when I do a live stream. I feel like, I feel like I'm talking by myself. I'm like, man, who's gonna actually want to see who I talk? I don't know.
That's why I like leaving you alone for a little bit. You did really good. You did really good.
I appreciate that, Pete. This is great. Guys, thank you so much, man. It was awesome.
No problem, man. All right, guys. Everybody have a great night. Thank you guys so much. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be on this channel again. I'm going to be having a comic book auction, a Sunday night auction. I got a bunch of my own comics again to sell. I got some stuff on eBay right now. I think listings are ending in an hour or so. But whatever doesn't sell on eBay tonight, I'm going to have that tomorrow, along with some other stuff, too. So if you guys are looking for stuff in the holidays, check it out. That's, again, tomorrow night at 9 Eastern Time. That's on this channel. See you then. Everybody, thank you so much. Gilly, thank you again, man. It was a great conversation.
Thanks again for the invite, buddy. I appreciate it.
No problem. And everybody, have a great night.